So here is the explanation from the people who translated this and put it all together. This is the explanation about how this myth is talking about Inanna going into her own kind of dark night of the soul and meeting a darker part of herself in the underworld and having to kind of take off the parts of herself that she thought she needed to be in the world. And then also about empathy and how she was saved from the underworld because the god decided to send down those creatures that helped the dark sister, the traumatized sister, the traumatized part, feel her feelings and be able to grieve. From the great above to the great below. And the path of the descent has impelled the mystic since the beginning of recorded human experience. In many traditional societies, initiatory tribal rites are often characterized by a symbolic descent into and ascent from the labyrinthian Earth Mother. These rituals give women and men the experience of being reborn on a spiritual plane. According to Mircea Eliade, traditional rituals of the descent tend to follow a universal pattern: separation from the family, regression to a prenatal state, the cosmic night, death, dismemberment, suffering, rebirth, and killing of another. In other traditional societies, only certain people are called to travel to the underworld, for the path to the great below is treacherous and there is no return. Often there is no return. Those who do return, such as Enki, the god of wisdom, become known as shamans and great magicians. They carry within them the knowledge of rebirth and often return, bringing to their cultures a new worldview. Sometimes there is a specific cause that starts or seems to start the descent: dissatisfaction, dissolution, separation from loved ones. In modern times, Tolstoy, at the age of 50, in good health, happily married and happily employed, wrote that there did not seem to be an apparent cause, only a call. I felt that something had broken within me, on which my life has always rested, and that I had nothing left to hold on to, and that morally my life had stopped. An invincible force impelled me to get rid of my existence in one way or another. It cannot be said exactly that I wished to kill myself, for the force which drew me away from my life was fuller, more powerful, more general than any mere desire. It was a force like my old aspiration to live, only it impelled me in the opposite direction. Inanna is the queen of heaven and earth, but she does not know the underworld. Until her ear opens to the great below, her understanding is necessarily limited. In Sumerian, the word for ear and wisdom is the same. The ear, which is located mostly internally and is coiled like a spiral or a labyrinth, takes in sounds and begins to transform the imperceptible into meaning. It is said that Enki, the god of wisdom and the king of the watery deep, who lives directly above the underworld, that his ears are wide open, that he knows all things. In order to fully appreciate or know what is said or meant, a great understanding is needed, an understanding of all things. It is the great below, the knowledge of death and rebirth, life and stasis, that will make Inanna an honored counselor and guide to the land. The moment Inanna opens her ear to the great below, her journey begins. Yet, although her journey begins at once, the way to the underworld is slow and laborious. To enter the spiritual realm of the underworld, Inanna must give up her earthly powers. One by one, Inanna abandons her glory, both in heaven and on earth. She abandons her 7 cities and temples. She abandons her worldly strongholds. To prepare for her journey, Inanna gathers up the 7 Mi. Just as a hero takes certain talismanic weapons to ensure his success, Inanna takes the 7 me, transformed into such feminine allure as a crown, jewelry, a gown, to serve as her protections. In case she should not return from the underworld, Inanna instructs Ninshubur in what to remind her fathers, and what way to remind her fathers of their daughter. Since Ninshubur is to enter the shrines of the gods where their cultic images reside, Inanna's metonymic description of herself as silver, stone, and wood may refer to the materials that the craft workers used to form the statues of Inanna, which, according to Sumerian belief, harbored the goddess herself. Silver, stone, and wood are also primarily elements representing the 3 worlds: the light of heaven, the permanence of earth, and the impermanence and decay of the underworld. At the gate of the underworld, Inanna is asked why she has come. Her first answer, because my older sister, Ereshkigal, probably the true spontaneous response, expresses the compelling, not yet understandable pull of the great below for Inanna. Her second, more formal, ceremonial reply refers to her desire to witness the funeral of Gugalana. In many ways, the bull of heaven's impetuous, forceful, procreative character resembles Inanna's. Certainly, the ever-curious Inanna would prefer to witness another's funeral, to gain power and knowledge over death by proxy, rather than to experience death herself. But to enter the underworld is to see Ereshkigal, to see the queen of the underworld, can bring Inanna the possibility of being witness to only one funeral, her own. Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, lives in a dry, dark realm. The Kur, which in Sumerian also means mountain and enemy territory, is the great unknown. Ereshkigal did not choose such a place to rule, but in the Haluku tree, we are told, she was given the underworld for her domain. In the underworld, she eats clay, she drinks dirty water, she has no compassion for the relationships of others, husband and wife, or parent and child. Her one craving is for her own sexual satisfaction. In the later Neo-Assyrian story of Nergal and Ereshkigal, we learn that when Nergal enters the Kur, Ereshkigal copulates with him for 6 days and 6 nights. Yet, when he departs on the 7th day, she has still not had enough. Like Lilith's, Ereshkigal's sexuality is compulsive, insatiable, and without relationship or offspring. She herself bemoans her plight when she begs the gods of heaven to send Nergal back to her. Since I, thy daughter, was young, I have not known the play of maidens. I have not known the frolic of young girls. That God, whom thou didst send and who has intercourse with me, let him lie with me. To the underground goddess, whose realm is dry and dark, whose husband Gugalana is dead, who has no protective or caring mother or father or brother that we know of, who wears no clothes, whose childhood is lost, can be considered the prototype of a witch. Unloving, unloved, abandoned, instinctual, full of rage, greed, and desperate loneliness. In many ways, Ereshkigal is the other neglected side of Inanna. Therefore, when she hears of the appearance of her at her gates of the all-white, fertile, bedecked goddess of love, she's enraged, for Inanna's light, glory, and perpetual movement have, to some extent, been achieved at her expense. Ereshkigal commands Neti to divest the bright goddess of all she has accomplished, so that the effervescent force of the universe, the ever-rising planet of the East, may experience what it is to be rejected, incapable of movement or relationship, and rendered prima materia. Neti opens the gates of the underworld to Inanna. The descent which Inanna began on earth by abandoning her 7 cities and her 7 temples, is continued and paralleled in the underworld. At each of the 7 gates, 7 in Akkadian means wholeness, Inanna is forced to give up another one of her earthly attributes. Inanna protests, yet she determinedly and heroically surrenders her roles as queen, holy priestess, and woman. Her royal power, her priestly office, her sexual powers, which had helped her in her journey and encounter with her father Enki, are of no avail in the underworld. In fact, all that Inanna had achieved on earth weighs against her when she meets the woman at whose expense Inanna's glories had been attained. The all-seeing judges of the underworld perceive Inanna's hidden, split-off parts and condemn her. Ereshkigal cries out guilty, and Inanna, like Guglana before her, is killed and becomes part of the underworld. The fate Inanna has chosen is the same that awaited every mortal Sumerian. However, from archaeological evidence and literary texts, it does not seem that Sumerians believed death was the end. For them, death marked the separation of body from the spirit. The body was buried in the ground. The spirit moved on to a different realm in the Kur, both at the royal cemeteries, Ur, Nippur, Kish, and at smaller cemeteries, private cemeteries, that have been excavated. There's a spider building a web right now. I don't think you can see it. It is building a web on my book. Vessels of stone and cups and lead with remains of food and drink have been found in the hands or next to the bodies of the dead. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Enkidu describes the vision that he has had for the Kur. The house where none leave who have entered it, where dust is their fare and clay their food. They are clothed like birds with wings for garments. They see no light, residing in the darkness. In the house of dust which I entered, I look at rulers, their crowns put away. I saw princes, those born to the crown, who had ruled the land for many days of yore. These double of Anu and Enlil were serving meat roasts. From Enkidu's account, we learn that Sumerian believe that although no one returns from the underworld, death is not completely final. The body disintegrates, yet the transformed spirit is recognizable. Rulers and princes become servants. Inanna, the mighty queen of heaven and earth, is no longer the commanding queen. She is now at the mercy of her servant, Ninshapur. Her spiritual self must save her. Inanna can do no more. When after 3 days Inanna does not return, Ninshapur follows Inanna's advice and pleads before the fathers. Enlil, Inanna's father's father, the authority and director of the rational world, wants nothing to do with Inanna and the Kur. Nana, Inanna's father and good son of Enlil, also has no appreciation or understanding of why Inanna might have gone on such a journey. Both Enlil and Nana are angry that Inanna should pursue a direction that is different from theirs. But Enki, Inanna's mother's father, and the god of wisdom, has compassion for his daughter who's in difficulty. Not only does the god of wisdom value the journey she has set upon, but he does not forget his daughter's significance. Inanna is the queen of heaven and earth. Her existence is vital to all the lands. The god of wisdom, Enki, has powers to create and to facilitate. He knows the nature of the feminine Kur, of its rule by the jealous, anguished Ereshkigal, who at this moment is moaning with the cries of a woman about to give birth. He creates from the dirt of his fingernails the Kagura and the Galatur, instinctual, asexual creatures who will not disturb the necessary infertility rites of the Kur. He endows the creatures with the artistic and empathetic talent of being professional mourners, capable of mirroring the lonely queen's emotions. At the same time that Ereshkigal is moaning both for her inside and her outside, Inanna is dying. Ereshkigal had willed Inanna's death, yet she can scarcely bear it. for Inanna is the other side of herself. The interplay between Inanna and Ereshkigal is complex and dynamic. Although Inanna had deemed to descend without cause to the core, it might now be understood that Ereshkigal, or the dark side of Inanna, had gone into labor and needed to be reborn. It was this labor or call that Inanna had heard from the great above. Ereshkigal, the neglected side of Inanna, has certain qualities that are similar to Lilith's. Both are connected to nighttime aspects of the feminine, the powerful raging sexuality and the deep wounds accumulated from life's rejections, which seek solace in physical union only. Lilith usually flees from rejections. Ereshkigal withdraws underground. In the Halupu tree, when Lilith could not have her own way, she resentfully and destructively smashed her own home. The powerful Lilith of Inanna's adolescent days had to be sent away so Inanna's life-exploring talents could be developed. But now that Inanna has become queen of her city, wife to her beloved, mother to her children, she is more able to face what she has neglected and feared, the instinctual, wounded, frightened parts of herself. She now hears and is capable of responding to the labor call of Ereshkigal in the great below. When Ereshkigal moans, the Kagara and the Galatur moan with her. The anguish she feels in the deep underworld is appeased by the echo of their concern. Ereshkigal is so touched by the attention they offer to her in her pain that she extends herself and offers, in turn, gifts of fertility and growth. But the creatures, following Enki's instructions, refuse these gifts and ask her instead for what she wishes to give. And yet for that which is most difficult for her to give. They ask her to release part of her personal anguish, her despair and anger, which is embodied in the glorious goddess of love. Yet by having permitted herself to be comforted and to experience the pleasure of the rapport with the other, Ereshkigal has already released part of her pain. Agreement to release her nemesis, Inanna, is the only confirmation of the spiritual movement that the god of wisdom and healing Enki had understood and most ingeniously brought about. That triad, Ninshubur, Inanna's spiritual self, Enki, the god of wisdom and healing, and the compassionate, instinctual Kagara and Galatur, is successful. Once reborn, Inanna wishes immediately to leave. However, in the Sumerian underworld, while a record of each arrival is kept, no one has ever been allowed before to depart. But Inanna's case is different. She has been reborn in the underworld, therefore new rules must be introduced. With the proclamation of the gods of the underworld, no one ascends from the underworld unmarked. If Inanna wishes to return, she must provide someone in her place. The rules of the underworld are both stretched and maintained. Inanna may leave, but she is responsible for finding someone to replace her. A part of Inanna must return. A passageway has been created from the great above, the conscious, to the great below, the unconscious, and it might be kept open. Inanna must not forget her neglected, abandoned older sister. That part of herself is Ereshkigal. Inanna leaves the underworld, accompanied by the Gala. In their uncompromising aspect of refusing all gifts, the Gala, or demons of the underworld, are the living representations of the core. Death accepts no deals, physical, emotional, or familial. Moreover, the Gala have the additional riveting aspect of belonging to the one for whom they are intended. Meanwhile, Inanna's servant and 2 sons who deeply care about her have abandoned the routine of their daily lives. Ninshubur waits by the gate of the underworld for Inanna. Shara and Lulal, Inanna's sons, wait for their mother in their temples, most likely praying. All 3 have taken off their customary clothes and put on sackcloth, the garment of mourning. Yet the king of Sumer goes on with life as if nothing happened, as if the queen of heaven and earth had not disappeared, as if his own wife were safe and secure. Near the apple tree where he and Inanna had once made love, Dumuzi dressed in the noble me-garments his wife had given him, seated on the royal throne, which his wife Inanna had also presented to him, clings to this new role of kingship and refuses to acknowledge the ties of feeling love that once bound him to his wife. When Inanna's inner ear opened and she departed from Uruk, she was in midlife, married with 2 children. Through her instructions, Inanna made careful provisions so that she would return. However, during her absence, Dumuzi had been following a completely different journey. Inanna had turned from earthly passion and achievement to the unknown. Dumuzi had turned from earthly passion to earthly achievement. Once shepherd, now king, kingship has become his path. He has grown so attached to and identified with his high position that he neither weeps for his lost wife nor runs to greet her when she returns, as do her sons and Ninshibur. The impasse between Inanna and Dumuzi at this moment is reflected in their physical positions. The Queen of Heaven, tormented by the underworld demons, stands below her husband. Dumuzi is raised above the earth and maintains his high seat and glorious shining garments. To understand this crucial and brutal encounter, it is worth hypothesizing on both of their thoughts. Dumuzi: I ruled the kingdom, kept order while she had ventured into chaos, and now she wants to reclaim her authority on earth. Her unsettling journey and demons bring turmoil to the kingdom. They are her concern, not mine. I must continue to carry out my all-consuming task of governing the people and the state of Sumer. Inanna: I placed him on the throne, gave him his position. I loved him, and he left me to attend to affairs of the state. While I went to deal with matters affecting my deepest soul, he used my powers to make himself more important. Once I was his whole world. Now he refuses to descend from his throne to help me. Whatever may have been the specific personal grievances between husband and wife that allow us to identify with the story, the greater issue is already determined. Someone must go to the underworld to replace Inanna. And the husband of Inanna is the perfect substitute, for he is also the king of Sumer. The Sumerians extolled the king who was wise and compassionate, as well as powerful. They extolled the king who cared for the weak, the poor, the wronged, the widowed. It was Inanna's visit to the underworld that opened the queen's vision to her own vulnerability. If Dumuzi is truly to be a great king in the ways that extolled the poets of Sumer, he too must journey to the feared place, to the great unknown. He too must meet Ereshkigal. Inanna's curse topples Dumuzi from his fixed position and forces him to face the dark, demanding aspects of his wife, as well as the uncontrollable, inexplicable, irrational mystery of death and the kingdom of Ereshkigal. Filled with terror, Dumuzi resists the Gala, who sees him. Yet, as Inanna's husband, as well as Dumuzi Abzu, the son of the god of wisdom, he has the inner capacity to undergo such a journey. Just as Inanna needed time to descend, abandoning one city and temple after another, Dumuzi too, in fleeing from Uruk to Kubaresh to Old Balili, prepares himself to leave the earth for his own journey of transformation.